Namaskar, world, and welcome to the Medical School Podcast. The class is in session. Welcome, welcome. For many of us, just the thought of a plane crash,
Yeah.
it brings up these images of, well, absolute chaos, right? A terrifying, totally unsurvivable event. It's this really deep fear, I think, often fueled by, dramatic headlines, movies. It can genuinely stop people flying altogether.
It can. And it's understandable, that fear response. It feels uncontrollable, catastrophic.
Totally.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that statistically speaking, your chances of actually walking away from an aviation accident are not just good. They're, well, surprisingly high, maybe even astonishingly so. The reality is quite different from the common perception.
It's absolutely true that public view of air safety, it often paints a much, much bleaker picture than the data actually supports. The fear, as you said, it's understandable given how dramatic incidents are when they happen, even if they're rare. But the statistics, they offer this powerful counter-narrative. If you look at the comprehensive reports from the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, the data consistently shows, year after year, that an impressive figure, really. More than 95% of passengers survive aviation accidents.
95%.
95%. And this isn't just, a random number. It's a statistic that genuinely shifts how we should think about these events. We should move from that feeling of helpless dread towards, well, empowered readiness.
95%.
Yeah.
That's truly incredible when you compare it to the anxiety so many people feel about flying. And to put that in an even wider context.
Well, you can look at the International Air Transport Association, IATC.
Yeah.
They track global data.
Okay.
And their reports show this astounding level of overall safety. Think about this. There's only about one accident for every several million flights.
Several million. Wow.
Yeah. So statistically, you're actually more likely to get struck by lightning or, sadly, be in a fatal car accident just driving to the airport than to be in a serious plane incident. When we talk safety, air travel is, well, unequivocally one of the safest ways to get around.
Unequivocally. That's a strong word, but the numbers back it up.
Precisely. These figures really highlight the robustness of the safety systems, the rigorous training, the constant innovation in aviation. But, and this is important, these reassuring stats, while they give crucial perspective, they don't mean we should just switch off and be complacent.
Right, because incidents do still happen, however rarely.
Exactly. And when those exceedingly rare events occur, like they tragically sometimes do, the difference between being in that 95% survivor group and becoming a different kind of statistic, well, that often comes down to individual actions, quick thinking, being prepared.
So what you do matters.
It can make all the difference. That individual response, knowing what to do in those critical moments, it can genuinely be that thin line between life and death.
Okay. And that's where looking at real-world events, even the tragic ones, becomes so important. It gives us tangible lessons. Let's talk about the Air India Flight 171 crash in Ahmedabad. That was June 12th, 2025.
Yes, a truly devastating incident.
It went down just minutes after takeoff. The outcome was just heartbreaking. 241 people on board lost their lives. And tragically, at least 29 people on the ground were also killed. Just awful.
A catastrophe of immense scale.
But here's the detail that really stands out, the one that makes you stop and think, especially for our discussion today. There was only one survivor from the aircraft.
Just one.
One person.
Yeah.
Against, seemingly impossible odds.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to really grasp the exact combination of factors that allowed that single person to survive when so many others didn't. But that lone survivor's story, it's a testament maybe to luck, specific circumstances, we don't know everything, but it powerfully underscores the life-saving importance of being informed, of being prepared, of knowing exactly what to do when every single second counts.
Yeah.
This isn't about, dwelling on fear or the improbable. It's about empowering you, our listener, with actionable knowledge, giving you some control where you can have control, even in extraordinary situations.
That's a really crucial distinction, isn't it? Turning a terrifying thought into a teachable moment. So our mission here in this segment of the Medical School Podcast is to really dig into the science, dissect the strategies, lay out the facts behind plane crash survival.
Yes.
It's about demystifying the fear and replacing it with practical, evidence-based insights.
Precisely. Our goal is to empower you to fly smarter, fly safer, to help you understand that while air travel is incredibly safe overall, being equipped with the right information, well, it could genuinely save your life if the improbable ever did happen. It's about building resilience, building readiness, not feeding anxiety.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's get right into pre-flight and in-flight readiness. This is stuff you can do before you even leave the ground, setting yourself up for success. First question, maybe one people wonder about. Does your seat choice actually matter? Is there a safest spot, or is that just, an old wives' tale?
No, it's definitely not just a myth. It does matter, statistically speaking. Now, it's crucial to say up front, no single seat is guaranteed 100% safe in every single type of crash scenario. Each incident is unique in its dynamics.
Right, of course.
But certain locations do seem to offer a notable advantage based on analysis of past survivable accidents. Generally, when you're booking, it's recommended to think about seats near an exit row, or perhaps, surprisingly to some, seats towards the rear of the aircraft.
The back, really? I thought maybe over the wing was considered stronger.
That's a common thought, but a significant investigation, one often cited by Popular Mechanics back in 2007. They meticulously analyzed decades of crash data from survivable commercial flights. And their findings consistently suggested that passengers seated in the back third of the plane, they actually had a statistically higher survival rate compared to those in the front or middle sections.
Huh. Interesting. So it's not just folklore.
No, it's data-driven. Now, that's not an absolute guarantee for every single event, obviously, but it's an insight based on historical data that's, well, pretty hard to ignore.
So what's the thinking behind that? Why the back or near exits, and how did this play out in that Ahmedabad tragedy?
Oh, Ahmedabad provides a tragic but clear illustration. The sole survivor of Air India 171 was, in fact, seated near an exit, seat 11A specifically. Yeah. That proximity, their ability to quickly get to that exit, undoubtedly played a critical role. So the analysis point is sort of twofold. Seats near exits, that's the obvious one, quicker escape. In a high-stress, maybe smoky, low-visibility situation, literally cutting down the distance you need to travel shaves off vital seconds.
Makes sense.
As for the rear, there are a couple of theories. One suggests that in many impact scenarios, particularly nose-first impacts, the front and middle sections absorb the brunt of the initial forces.
Right.
The tail section, the empennage, which is built to withstand significant aerodynamic forces anyway, might sometimes retain more structural integrity. It might decelerate slightly less violently than the front in certain impacts. Another thought is the rear often has fewer complex systems, no cockpit, maybe a smaller galley, fewer things become hazards during the impact itself.
Fewer potential projectiles or fire sources, maybe?
Potentially, yes. But the key takeaway, regardless of front or back, is that being closer to any usable exit dramatically cuts down your evacuation time. And as we'll discuss, time is absolutely everything. So choosing a seat near an exit, or perhaps in the rear based on those stats, is a strategic choice. Not magical, but strategic.
Okay, strategy, not magic. I like that. Every second counts. Minimize the distance. Got it. Now, moving on from where you sit, what about something maybe even more basic? What you wear, and maybe even what you drink before or during a flight. Does that really factor into preparedness? Seems minor.
It absolutely does factor in, and it falls under what we call practical attire and personal preparedness. It's not minor when things go wrong. My strong advice: choose practical clothing. Think long sleeves, long trousers, ideally made from natural fibers like cotton or wool, and crucially, sturdy, closed-toe shoes.
Okay, why specifically those things?
Right, imagine the worst-case scenario. You might need to move through wreckage, sharp metal, broken glass, maybe even fire or thick smoke. Flammable synthetic fabrics, things like nylon or polyester, they can actually melt onto your skin in high heat, causing horrific burns.
Oh, nasty.
Exactly. And open-toed shoes, sandals, flip-flops, high heels. They offer basically zero protection against sharp debris, hot surfaces, or just uneven ground. Sturdy, closed-toe shoes protect your feet from cuts, punctures, burns, and give you the grip and stability you need to move fast and safely during an evacuation. Long sleeves and trousers. They give you a vital layer of protection against scrapes, burns, and maybe even the extreme cold or heat outside the aircraft. It's purely pragmatic. Function over fashion in this case.
Function over fashion. Got it. Especially the shoes ditch the heels and sandals before flying. And you mentioned hydration and alcohol, too.
Precisely. And this is often overlooked, but it directly impacts your ability to react quickly and clearly. Avoid alcohol before and during the flight, and make sure you stay well hydrated with water.
Why is that so critical?
It's simple biology, really. Alcohol acts as a depressant. It slows down your central nervous system. That means your ability to process information quickly, make snap decisions, and physically execute an escape plan. It's all going to be compromised. Dehydration, which is really common in dry, pressurized cabin air, can also lead to fatigue, dizziness, impaired judgment.
Yeah.
In an emergency, you need to be sharp. You need to be clear-headed, physically capable. Being impaired by alcohol or woozy from dehydration is a serious disadvantage.
Okay, makes sense. Stay sharp. And what about digital preparedness? You mentioned that briefly.
Yeah, just a quick point, especially if you're flying over remote areas or regions known for, let's say, instability, or just for general peace of mind. It's wise to download key info onto your phone or device for offline access. Think emergency contacts, maybe critical medical information like blood type or allergies, essential flight details, even basic offline maps of the area you're flying over.
Because cell service might be gone.
Exactly. In a remote crash site, you'll have zero signal. Having that key information readily available without needing a network connection could be invaluable, either for yourself or for rescuers trying to help you. Simple step, big potential benefit.
Good tip. Okay, all this sounds like basic common sense, but things we often overlook in the sort of rush of getting ready for a trip, which brings me perfectly to the safety briefing.
Yes, the briefing.
We've all done it, haven't we? Settle in, maybe put headphones on, scroll through the phone, chat, while the flight attendants are going through the motions. It's so easy to just tune it out. How important is it really? Does it actually matter if you listen for the 100th time?
It is critically important. I honestly can't stress this enough. That safety briefing isn't just some repetitive routine airlines have to do. It's a vital, specific guide tailored to the exact aircraft you are sitting on for that specific flight. Every aircraft model, even different layouts within the same airline's fleet, can have slightly different exit locations, different ways to operate the doors, different places for life vests or oxygen masks. Relying on what you vaguely remember from your last flight on a totally different plane, that could literally cost you precious seconds you just don't have in an emergency.
Okay, so listen up every single time.
Every single time. Know where your nearest exits are plural, usually one forward, one behind, and know how to open them if you happen to be sitting right next to one. And here's a really practical, potentially life-saving tip I always give. Physically count the number of rows between your seat and the nearest exit in front of you and the nearest exit behind you.
Count the rows. Why?
It might seem trivial sitting there in a well-lit cabin, but imagine that cabin suddenly filling with thick, acrid smoke. Visibility can drop to practically zero within seconds. You won't be able to see the exit signs. You'll have to navigate purely by feel, by touch. Counting the seat backs as you move along the aisle. That simple act of counting beforehand creates a kind of tactile map, a bit like muscle memory for a blind escape.
Wow. That's a sobering thought, feeling your way out in darkness or smoke. That really drives home why knowing your exact location relative to an exit is crucial.
Exactly. It's about building that spatial awareness before you're under extreme pressure. And again, the Ahmedabad survivor's story, while unique, reinforces this. Their proximity to an exit, combined with we have to infer an awareness of their surroundings and the ability to act fast, likely played a huge role. Being able to quickly find and get to an exit, even if you can't see, that's a primary factor in survivable crashes. That seemingly boring few minutes of paying attention. It's a tiny investment for a potentially massive life-saving return.
Okay. Message received. Pay attention. Count the rows. That leads us right into the most intense part of any potential incident. The moments during the imminent crash.
We've all seen it. Maybe on the safety card, definitely in movies.
Mm-hmm.
The brace position.
Mm-hmm.
This feels like a bit of a cliche, doesn't it? Something you just sort of vaguely mimic. Is it actually effective? Or is it more of a, I don't know, formality, something airlines do for liability, perhaps?
Oh, it is unequivocally effective. Let me be absolutely clear. The brace position is not a myth. It's not a formality designed to make you feel better. It is a scientifically proven posture, meticulously designed to significantly reduce injuries in what we call survivable crashes. Crashes where the impact forces themselves aren't necessarily fatal.
Okay. Proven how?
This isn't just theory. It's backed by decades of research, extensive crash test dummy data, analysis of real-world crash investigations by bodies like the UK Civil Aviation Authority, the FAA, the NTSB. They all consistently confirm its effectiveness in dramatically increasing your chances of survival and reducing the severity of injuries. Right. And the posture itself. Remind us exactly what it involves.
It's very specific, designed to protect your most vulnerable parts. Your feet should be flat on the floor, ideally slightly behind your knees to prevent sliding under the belt. Your head needs to be down, either resting firmly against the seat back in front of you, if it's close and sturdy,
Okay.
or if there's no seat close in front, tucked down securely between your knees. And your arms are crucial for protecting your head and neck, either crossed over your head, with your hands perhaps gripping the top of the seat in front, or clasped tightly behind your head, elbows tucked in.
So it's more than just ducking your head. There's real thought behind the limb positioning. What's the actual science, the biomechanics, the physics? Why does that specific position work?
It's all about managing and distributing the immense forces involved and protecting vital areas from what's called secondary impact. When an aircraft impacts, you experience incredible g-forces, rapid acceleration, or more likely deceleration. These forces can throw your body around violently inside the cabin.
Right, like being thrown forward.
Exactly. The brace position aims to do several critical things. First, it prevents those secondary impacts. Without bracing, your head could slam into the seat in front, or you could be thrown forward hard, leading to severe head, neck, or spinal injuries. Those are often fatal or cause permanent disability. By tucking your head and bracing your upper body, you stabilize your most vulnerable parts.
Okay, stability.
Second, it helps distribute the impact forces across the strongest parts of your body, primarily your legs, your hips, your torso, rather than concentrating them on your fragile head and neck. Having your feet flat and tucked back also helps prevent something called submarining, where your body slides forward under the seatbelt. That can cause severe internal abdominal injuries from the belt itself.
Ouch. Okay.
So essentially, the brace position turns your body into a more compact, more resilient unit. It makes you less susceptible to flailing injuries caused by the rapid deceleration. It reduces the kinetic energy directed at your vital organs and brain. It's an active measure, consciously taken, to mitigate the physics of the impact.
That's fascinating. A really critical piece of information. Most people probably don't realize the deep science behind what looks like a simple posture. And speaking of staying stable, is it just that final impact moment that's the main danger? Or are there other times during a flight where things can get unexpectedly rough?
Oh, the danger is absolutely not limited to the final impact. Not at all. This is precisely why the advice, the rule, really, is to keep your seatbelt fastened at all times whenever you are seated, even if the fasten seatbelt sign is off.
Even when cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet.
Especially then, perhaps, because it's unexpected. Many injuries on aircraft happen not during a crash, but during sudden, severe, and often unforecasted turbulence, or during rapid descents that might be necessary for various reasons. These events can occur without any warning, even to the pilot sometimes.
Clear air turbulence, for instance.
Exactly. Clear air turbulence is invisible. It can generate significant g-forces, both positive and negative, that can literally throw unsecured passengers violently upwards into the ceiling or sideways into bulkheads, seats, other passengers. We're talking broken bones, severe head trauma, concussions. Sadly, even fatalities have occurred just from turbulence. Your seatbelt is your primary essential restraint against these sudden forces. It keeps you anchored securely, preventing you from becoming a projectile within the cabin. It's a simple, continuous act of protection.
Okay, powerful reminder. Buckle up. Keep it buckled. Now, thinking about the immediate aftermath of an impact, there's a statistic that's often mentioned, quite sobering, known as the 90-second rule. Can you explain what that is and why it's so critical?
Yes, this is a really foundational concept for understanding immediate post-impact survival strategy. It highlights the extreme urgency. Studies, particularly those by the FAA looking at post-crash fire scenarios, have tragically shown that over 90% of fatalities in survivable crashes, they occur within the first 90 seconds after the aircraft comes to a stop.
90 seconds? That's a minute and a half. That's incredibly fast.
Incredibly fast. And here's the crucial point, one that's often misunderstood. In a survivable crash, the primary cause of these immediate fatalities is almost never the impact forces themselves. It's smoke or fire.
Smoke and fire, not the impact.
Correct, in potentially survivable scenarios. The implications of this are profound. It emphasizes the absolute extreme urgency of immediate, swift, unhesitating action after the impact. You literally have this critical window of seconds, maybe a minute and a half max, to get out before smoke inhalation or fire makes escape impossible. Smoke fills the cabin rapidly, depletes oxygen, contains toxic fumes. Heat becomes unbearable. This 90-second rule dictates the non-negotiable urgency for evacuation. It is a race against time, and truly every single fraction of a second counts.
90 seconds. That window is incredibly tight, incredibly sobering. It just underscores the absolute need for immediate, decisive action. Okay, so let's move into that phase. Post-impact and evacuation. The impact has happened. It's now a race against that 90-second clock. What is the immediate critical strategy for getting out?
The immediate overriding strategy is simply rapid evacuation. Get out. Fast. This is exactly where that mental rehearsal, counting the rows, knowing your exits from the safety briefing, this is where it pays off. You need to act instantly, without hesitation. And the most crucial directive, absolutely non-negotiable for your own speed and the safety of everyone else, is evacuate without your luggage.
Leave everything behind.
Everything. Do not stop for bags in the overhead bin. Do not try to rummage under the seat for your backpack. Do not waste precious seconds grabbing personal belongings. Every single second you spend fumbling with a carry-on is a second stolen from your own escape window. And critically, it's a second stolen from the escape of potentially dozens, even hundreds, of other passengers trying to get out behind you. This isn't just a guideline, it's a life-saving imperative.
I've heard horror stories, seen videos even, of people trying to grab their bags, even with smoke filling the cabin. It just seems unimaginable in that situation. Why is that instinct so strong, and why is it so incredibly dangerous?
It's a common, yet potentially fatal human instinct. Psychologists might talk about the endowment effect. We instinctively value things we own, sometimes irrationally so. But in an emergency evacuation, it's catastrophically dangerous. While the general guidance is, yes, assist others if you can do so quickly and safely without impeding the flow, your primary, immediate priority has to be moving rapidly towards an exit yourself. Swift evacuation and remaining as calm as possible are crucial for collective survival.
Right.
Now, specifically about luggage, it's an absolute don't, because a single person stopped in an aisle wrestling with a bag can create a disastrous bottleneck. It physically blocks the path for everyone behind them. It can turn a potentially survivable situation into a fatal one for many simply because the exit route gets clogged. Think about it like a traffic jam, but with deadly consequences. One delay ripples backwards, potentially trapping entire rows or sections as that 90-second window slams shut due to smoke or fire, your laptop, your souvenirs. However valuable they seem, they are not worth a human life. Not yours, not someone else's.
That puts it starkly. You can't save anyone if you get trapped or if you inadvertently trap others. But, okay, in that sudden, terrifying moment of impact and chaos, how do you even start to act quickly? Your brain must just be screaming panic. You mentioned something called the startle effect.
Yes, exactly. And that's precisely why being aware of it, anticipating it, is so important. The startle effect, or sometimes called the freeze response, it's a natural, instinctive human reaction to a sudden, unexpected, overwhelming threat, like a deer in headlights.
Right.
It's a primal, hardwired thing. A momentary paralysis that can grip you when you're hit with the shock and sensory overload of a crash. Why is it dangerous? Obviously, because it can immobilize passengers, delay that crucial first action by vital seconds. Seconds, we know, from the 90-second rule, are absolutely critical. Your brain effectively gets overwhelmed. It kind of goes offline for a moment.
So how do you fight it?
The empowering part is that simply knowing about it, understanding that it's a natural response, can help you override it. If you anticipate that your body might want to freeze, you can make a conscious effort to push through it, to force yourself to move. Remember that exit plan you rehearsed. Having that pre-programmed response can also help it kick in automatically, potentially before the startle effect fully takes hold. Mental preparation is key.
So knowing your body might freeze gives you a mental edge to combat it.
Okay.
And in that chaos, who are the key people, the anchors, to look to for immediate guidance?
Your flight attendants, absolutely. They are your immediate first responders on the scene. They're your best resource. Remember, they aren't just there to serve drinks. They are highly trained safety professionals. They are specifically and repeatedly drilled in emergency procedures, evacuation protocols, crowd management, firefighting, first aid.
Right? Their primary job is safety.
Exactly. They know that aircraft inside and out. They know the emergency systems. They are trained to assess the situation rapidly, which exits are blocked, which are usable, and guide passengers to safety, even under the most extreme pressure imaginable. Their commands are not suggestions. They are directives based on their training and assessment, and they must be followed promptly, without question or hesitation. Following their instructions allows for a more orderly, efficient evacuation, maximizing everyone's chances. They train to remain calm under pressure precisely because they've rehearsed these scenarios over and over. Trust their training.
Okay, trust the crew, follow instructions. So let's say you've done it. You braced, survived the impact, fought the startle effect, left your bags, followed the crew, and gotten out of the aircraft within that critical window. Amazing. But, as you hinted earlier, just getting out isn't necessarily the end of the danger, is it? What comes next? What about survival after evacuation? What new threats might emerge once you're away from the wreckage?
You're absolutely right. The immediate danger from the aircraft fire or smoke might be over, but you could now be in a completely different survival situation depending on where the incident occurred. Navigating these post-evacuation dangers is critical. If you've landed in a remote, cold environment, the big threats become hypothermia, that dangerous drop in core body temperature and dehydration. Rescue might not be immediate.
So what do you do?
Your strategies have to shift. Use whatever you can salvage safely from the wreckage, things like seat cushions for insulation, blankets, even spare clothing layers. Huddle together with other survivors for collective warmth. Find shelter from wind if possible. In a hot desert environment, the priorities flip. Find shade, conserve water meticulously. If the crash happened near or in water, the dangers are again hypothermia, even in surprisingly cool water, and exhaustion from trying to stay afloat.
So for water.
The key is stay visible for rescuers. Conserve your energy. Don't try to swim long distances unless land is very clearly reachable and close. Focus on staying afloat, using any available flotation devices like your life vest, inflated after exiting and signaling. Adapt to the environment you find yourself in.
That makes sense. Adapt using limited resources. What about the plane's own emergency supplies? Are there things actually on the plane besides maybe blankets that could help survivors after they've gotten out?
Yes, absolutely. Commercial aircraft are required to carry certain emergency survival equipment. If it's safe to approach the wreckage after the immediate evacuation and fire risk is assessed, you might find crucial supplies. We're talking about things like first aid kits, flashlights, sometimes emergency locator transmitters, maybe prepackaged water, megaphones, even axes in some cases.
Okay.
Once you've evacuated and moved a safe distance away and, critically, upwind from the wreckage, to avoid toxic fumes or potential flare-ups,
Right, stay upwind.
use these supplies, if accessible, to help manage the situation. Set up a designated safe area for survivors to gather. Staying together improves morale and greatly increases the chances of being spotted by rescuers. Use the first aid kit for injuries. A flashlight can be used for signaling at night. The principle is get away, get safe, get organized, get found. And that last step, signaling for help, is vital. Use anything bright clothing, mirrors, reflective parts of the wreckage. If safe and possible, a signal fire. Make large ground signals visible from the air.
This whole scenario, from impact to rescue, really highlights the critical role of immediate medical care, doesn't it? Even care provided by non-professionals. And this ties right back into our show's focus here at the Medical School Podcast.
It absolutely does. That concept of the golden hour in trauma care, the critical period right after an injury where prompt medical treatment can literally prevent death, it applies here more intensely than almost anywhere else. And the critical role extends beyond just professional healthcare workers who might eventually arrive. It absolutely includes the onboard flight crew who are trained in advanced first aid, and crucially, it includes any fellow survivors who happen to possess basic first aid skills.
So even basic skills can make a huge difference.
Enormous difference. Knowing how to perform simple, effective hands-only CPR, knowing how to control severe bleeding hemorrhage control using direct pressure, or maybe even improvising a tourniquet if you're trained, knowing how to apply simple bandages to protect wounds, how to stabilize a suspected fracture, how to manage shock by keeping someone warm and calm. These basic actions, taken immediately by anyone on the scene before professional help arrives, can significantly reduce casualties.
Yep.
They dramatically improve outcomes, buying precious time and preserving life until advanced medical care is available.
Like in the Ahmedabad situation, medical personnel were obviously crucial for the survivor, but also for treating the many injured people on the ground who were hit by debris.
Precisely. The swift response of local Ahmedabad medical teams was vital for the lone survivor and for those injured on the ground. Their actions really underscore how immediate medical intervention, even basic first aid provided right away by anyone trained, can be the absolute difference between life and death when seconds genuinely count. And this really leads me to a direct call to action for you, our listener. Please, learn basic first aid. Seriously, take a certified course in CPR, even just hand-only CPR. Learn how to stop severe bleeding. Courses like Stop the Bleed are fantastic. Learn how to recognize and respond to choking. You just never, ever know when these skills might be needed. Not just in an incredibly rare plane crash, but in everyday life. A car accident you witness, a fall at home, a sporting event, a restaurant. Knowing how to provide immediate help can make you the person who saves a life. Maybe a stranger's, maybe a loved one's, maybe even your own. It's a fundamental life skill.
That's powerful advice and something we definitely champion here. Okay, let's pivot slightly now. Let's look at the bigger picture. Systemic safety and learning. It's not just about what individuals do. It's about how the whole aviation industry constantly learns and improves. Thinking about modern aircraft design, are planes today genuinely safer than, say, planes from a few decades ago?
Oh, absolutely. By orders of magnitude safer. Modern aircraft, like the Boeing 787 involved in the Ahmedabad incident, are designed with safety as the absolute paramount consideration. They incorporate a multitude of advanced safety features that simply didn't exist or weren't as refined in older generations of aircraft.
Like what, for example?
Well, for instance, they make extensive use of highly fire-retardant materials throughout the entire cabin seat: fabrics, carpets, wall panels, insulation. These materials are designed to significantly slow the spread of fire and, crucially, reduce the amount of toxic smoke generated. That directly addresses that critical 90-second survival window we talked about.
Ah, buying more time.
Exactly. Plus, they feature enhanced evacuation systems.
Hmm.
Think improved emergency lighting strips along the floor, often photoluminescent so they glow in the darker smoke. Clearer, internationally recognized exit signage, more reliable, faster deploying evacuation slides. Everything is meticulously engineered to get people out faster and more safely. And that's just the cabin. You also have stronger airframes, incredibly sophisticated avionics giving pilots vastly better situational awareness, highly redundant systems for critical controls like hydraulics and electrical power. It's a whole different level of built-in safety.
So it's continuous improvement driven by engineering and design. And who's responsible for making sure these standards are met? Who are the watchdogs overseeing all this?
That's the vital role played by regulatory bodies. Agencies like the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA in the U.S., or the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, are key players globally. There are similar bodies in most countries. Their job is incredibly comprehensive and ongoing. They're responsible for certifying aircraft designs, setting strict manufacturing standards, overseeing airline operations and maintenance procedures, mandating pilot training requirements, managing air traffic control,
The whole ecosystem.
the entire ecosystem. And crucially, they are constantly reviewing and updating safety protocols. These updates aren't just pulled out of thin air. They are directly informed by the hard lessons learned from meticulous investigations of accidents and serious incidents, analysis of near-miss reports, and ongoing scientific research into materials, human factors, aerodynamics, everything. Every single event, no matter how rare, provides invaluable data that feeds back into the system, leading to improvements in aircraft design, maintenance, training, procedures. It's this continuous iterative cycle of learning and adaptation that makes air travel progressively safer over time.
And the Ahmedabad crash, as devastating as it was, will undoubtedly become part of that cycle, won't it? What sort of global impact or scrutiny has that specific incident already triggered?
It absolutely has triggered significant global scrutiny and a major multi-agency response, as you'd expect from an incident of this scale and nature. Boeing, as the manufacturer of the 787, immediately sent their own expert investigators to the site to assist and collaborate with the primary investigative authorities. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, the DGCA, is leading the investigation, but they're working very closely with the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, the NTSB, pooling their resources, technical expertise, and forensic capabilities.
So international cooperation.
Yes, standard practice in major investigations. They'll be doing meticulous analysis of the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, the so-called black boxes, examining the wreckage in minute detail, interviewing any witnesses, scrutinizing maintenance logs, weather data, everything. And the gravity of the situation is really highlighted by the fact that authorities were, and possibly still are, seriously evaluating the drastic measure of temporarily grounding Air India's entire fleet of 787s as a precautionary step while the investigation proceeds.
While grounding the fleet, that's huge.
It shows the level of commitment to leaving no stone unturned, ensuring no potential systemic safety issue is missed. The anticipated outcome isn't just finding the specific cause or causes of this one tragedy. It's about generating new insights, potentially leading to refined safety protocols, updated training, maybe even design modifications if warranted, that will ultimately enhance the safety of future air travel for everyone. Tragedies, sadly, often become powerful catalysts for industry-wide safety advancements.
It's a testament to the industry's resilience and commitment to learning, even from the most painful events. And sometimes these lessons, these principles we're discussing, are best illustrated not just by tragedy, but by inspiring stories of survival where things went right. We don't always hear enough about those, but they exist, don't they? Can you share a well-known example that really embodies these principles in action?
Of course. And it's important to remember these successes. One of the most famous, most inspiring examples in recent history has to be the Hudson River landing in 2009, often called the Miracle on the Hudson.
Yes, Captain Sully.
Exactly. Captain Chesley Sully. Sullenberger and his crew successfully ditched U.S. Airways Flight 1549 on the icy Hudson River in New York City after a catastrophic bird strike took out both engines shortly after takeoff from LaGuardia. What was truly remarkable wasn't just the landing itself, but the fact that all 155 people on board, passengers and crews, survived. even with the plane rapidly taking on freezing water.
Incredible outcome.
And when the survivors were interviewed afterwards, time and again, they credited several key factors for their survival. 1. Paying close attention to the safety briefing, knowing where the exits were, how the life vests worked. 2. The absolutely exemplary performance and coordination of the flight crew, who remained calm, gave clear instructions, and managed the evacuation swiftly and professionally. And 3. The passengers themselves, who largely remained calm, followed those instructions and helped each other.
So it's a combination of factors.
It really was. It wasn't just luck. The luck certainly played a role with the location and nearby ferry response. It was preparedness, meeting professionalism, expert piloting, well-drilled crew procedures, and passengers who listened and acted appropriately. It's a powerful, real-world example of how everything we're discussing, awareness, following procedures, calm action, crew training, can come together to produce an extraordinary outcome in a situation that could easily have been a disaster.
That story really does drive home the point. It wasn't a movie. It was real people applying these principles. Okay, let's shift now to focus on common pitfalls and empowering knowledge. We've talked about what to do. What are some of the critical don'ts? Common mistakes passengers make that can actually hinder their own survival or even put others at risk in an emergency.
This is a really important checklist because sometimes our instincts in a crisis are exactly the wrong ones. First big don't. Don't ignore the safety card that's usually in the seat pocket right in front of you.
Even after listening to the briefing.
Yes, because it's not just generic. It's a visual diagram specific to that aircraft model. It shows the exact locations of all exits, emergency equipment like fire extinguishers or first aid kits, and illustrates the correct brace positions for that particular seat configuration. Ignoring it means missing vital, customized visual information that could be crucial if you need to act fast, especially if you couldn't hear the briefing clearly or forget details under stress.
Okay, so read the card too. What else?
Second, and we touched on this with clothing, but it bears repeating, don't remove your shoes mid-flight. I know it's tempting for comfort on a long haul.
Guilty as charged sometimes.
Many of us are. But in an emergency, you desperately need those shoes. Bare feet or just socks offer zero protection against potentially jagged metal, broken glass, hot surfaces, or even just rough terrain outside the plane. They slow you down, make you vulnerable to injury, and hinder your ability to move quickly and safely. Keep them on, or at least readily accessible under your seat, not stuffed deep in an overhead bin.
Sensible shoes, kept on or nearby. Got it. Next.
Third, and this one is absolutely critical, especially for in potential water landing or ditching, don't inflate your life vest while you are still inside the aircraft cabin.
Right, you mentioned this briefly. Why is that so dangerous?
It's a common, deadly misconception. If you inflate the vest inside, and the cabin then starts to fill with water, the buoyancy of the vest will pin you against the ceiling. It makes it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to swim down and out through a submerged exit or doorway. You become trapped by the very device meant to save you. Life vests are designed to be inflated only after you have exited the aircraft, usually by pulling a cord or blowing into a tube once you're clear of the fuselage and actually in the water. Inflating it too soon turns it from a lifesaver into a death trap.
Wow. Okay, inflate outside only. Crucial. Any other key?
One more big one related to evacuation. Avoid blocking the aisles for any reason. We talk about luggage, but this also means not stopping to try and make a phone call, not lingering to look around in confusion, not attempting a complex rescue of someone that significantly impedes the flow of people behind you. Every second an aisle is blocked is a second lost for potentially dozens of people trying to reach safety. The fundamental why behind all these don'ts is about maintaining your own safety and facilitating the rapid, unimpeded escape of everyone else. Your actions directly impact collective survival.
These are such simple points, but the reasoning behind each one is so compelling. It really feels like the common thread through all of this is, well, holistic preparedness. It's not just about doing one thing right, but approaching the whole experience with a prepared mindset, covering multiple stages.
Precisely. That's the perfect way to put it. Holistic preparedness. It's about being ready at every stage of your journey, from booking to aftermath. So before the flight, that's your strategic seat choice, wearing the right practical clothing, paying attention to the briefing, counting those rows, doing that mental rehearsal, setting the stage.
Okay.
During the impact. That's when the brace position becomes your immediate protective action. Coupled with that crucial ability to manage fear, stay as calm and focused as possible amidst the chaos, letting your preparation kick in.
Right.
And then after landing or stopping, that demands immediate, swift evacuation. No hesitation, leave everything. Then, if you're trained and it's safe, administering first aid. And finally, maintaining cohesion with other survivors staying together, helping each other, signaling for rescue. Understanding the whole process, the procedures, not only empowers you personally, but makes you a better participant in a collective emergency response. You can cooperate effectively with the crew and emergency responders, becoming part of the solution.
I think for many people, though, a big barrier to even thinking about these steps is just the underlying fear of flying itself. It's such a common anxiety, almost a phobia for some. You suggested earlier that knowledge can help fight that fear.
It absolutely can. It's one of those powerful tools against anxiety. It's normal, maybe even rational on some level, to feel apprehensive about entrusting your life to a complex machine miles above the ground. That perceived lack of control feeds fear. But knowledge helps conquer that anxiety by replacing the terrifying unknown with concrete understanding and actionable strategies.
How so?
When you truly grasp the actual statistics, how incredibly safe flying is, how rare serious accidents are, and then you internalize the practical, proven steps you can personally take to enhance your own safety and preparedness, you shift from feeling like a helpless victim of fate to feeling like an empowered, informed participant. You regain a sense of agency, of control over the aspects you can control.
And are there specific resources for people with significant fear?
Yes, definitely. There are specialized programs, often called things like Fearless Flyer or SAR, Security Orchestration, Automation and Response, often relates to cybersecurity, but similar named programs exist for fear of flying. These are often run by airlines or independent therapists and organizations. They typically combine education about aviation safety and how planes work, explanations of the sounds and sensations of flight, practical coping strategies based on cognitive behavioral therapy, and sometimes even exposure therapy, like visiting an airport or sitting in a simulator. They work by demystifying the experience and giving people tangible tools to manage their anxiety. Knowledge builds confidence.
Okay. And bringing it back one last time to the medical school podcast's core perspective. As a medical professional, you'd really double down on one specific skill for everyone to learn, correct?
Without a shadow of a doubt. If there's one takeaway beyond aviation specifics, it's the critical importance of basic first aid training for everyone. Knowing how to perform effective hands-only CPR, knowing how to quickly and effectively stop severe bleeding hemorrhage control using direct pressure is simple and saves lives. These are fundamental skills.
And not just for plane crashes.
Absolutely not. This isn't primarily about plane crashes, which are incredibly rare. This is about being prepared for any emergency you might encounter in your everyday life. Car accidents, household injuries, choking incidents, sudden collapses, workplace accidents. Knowing basic first aid makes you an asset to your community, your family, and potentially yourself. These skills are accessible, they're relatively easy to learn from reputable organizations like the Red Cross or American Heart Association, and they are immensely powerful. Knowing how to help in those first few critical minutes before professional responders arrive can literally be the difference between life and death. It's about being a prepared citizen, ready and capable of assisting in a crisis.
Such a powerful and practical message. Okay, let's try and summarize the key takeaways from this whole discussion for our listener, just to really cement the core actions.
Absolutely. Let's boil it down. The core actions for maximizing your chances of survival in the unlikely event of an aviation incident come down to these key steps. First, prepare. Choose your seat thoughtfully. Dress practically in non-flammable clothing and sturdy shoes, and mentally rehearse your exit plan. Second, stay aware. Pay close attention to that safety briefing every single time. Count the rows to your nearest exits. Know your surroundings. Third, brace. Know the correct brace position and adopt it immediately if instructed or if impact seems imminent, and keep that seatbelt fastened whenever seated. Fourth, evacuate. Act fast, decisively. Leave all belongings behind. Your only goal is getting out. Fifth, assist. Help others if you can do so quickly and safely without blocking the flow, but prioritize your own egress first. And finally, get help fast. Once you're safely away from the immediate wreckage and upwind, assess the environment, use any available emergency supplies, signal clearly for rescue, and apply basic first aid if you're trained and it's needed.
And that recent Ahmedabad tragedy, while horrific, serves as such a stark, real-world reminder of just how critical every single one of those steps can be. The story of that lone survivor beating the odds offers profound, life-saving lessons about preparedness, awareness, and maybe that little bit of luck too. It really transforms a terrifying event into a powerful, teachable moment.
It does. And always remember, flight incidents are statistically incredibly rare. Flying remains one of the safest forms of travel. But being prepared isn't about expecting the worst. It's about empowering yourself with knowledge and readiness. It means you're never leaving your safety entirely to chance. It gives you agency, even in the most extreme circumstances.
So, a final thought perhaps for a listener to ponder. In a world where unforeseen events, big and small, can always arise, what other seemingly unlikely scenarios in your life might actually benefit from a similar level of informed preparation? And maybe more importantly, how can learning those basic first aid skills we discussed extend far beyond the hypothetical plane crash to genuinely benefit your everyday life and the lives of those around you? This podcast is brought to you by Dr. Rajdeep Bahadur Khatri. If you found this video helpful, then don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe for more content like this. Stay informed and stay healthy.